we seem to have maybe a good problem on our hands. We have a bunch of celebrities coming to Christian faith and making professions that they place faith in Jesus. But are these conversions legitimate? And how should Christians be thinking about the conversions of these famous people? Guys, my name is Joshua Lewis, and in this episode of Remnant Radio, we're diving into it. You guys stay tuned. Today we're exploring an increasingly significant topic, that of celebrity conversion to Christianity. Whenever a public figure publicly embraces the Christian faith, it naturally captures our attention, as stirring up feelings sometimes of excitement, curiosity, skepticism, often a combination thereof in many of our communities. Individuals like Justin Bieber, Kanye West, Russell Brand, Chris Pratt, Zachary Levi, Avril Lavigne are all professing Christians. And even Jordan Peterson seems like he's just one Tolkien-esque friend away from becoming the next C.S. Lewis. I say that tongue-in-cheek. It's worth asking the question, why are we so drawn to these celebrity conversion stories in the first place? People naturally gravitate toward influential figures who shape culture and public opinion. So when someone famous comes out with their profession of Christian faith, evangelicals often erupt in celebration. And don't get me wrong, if you're actually celebrating over someone's genuine conversion, that's absolutely worth celebrating. But often what I see, especially in the YouTube comments and social posts, I feel like we're not celebrating their Christian faith, and we're more celebrating Christian relevance within culture. Maybe I'm a little bit jaded from growing up in the 90s in the seeker-sensitive movement. We rocked Christian t-shirts, that said Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, but they didn't really say Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. When you got closer, they actually said Jesus. We had Christian boy bands trying to be NSYNC and the Backstreet Boys, while our girl bands were trying to channel their inner Spice Girls. We were always trying to knock off secular culture and repackage it in a way that was Christian, and honestly, it was a little cheesy and awkward. So when I see Christians gawking over celebrity conversions, I often recognize that same impulse. Look, Christianity can be cool too. But that's a dangerous posture. There's a real risk in turning celebrities into spiritual trophies, highlighting their fame more than investing into their spiritual walk with Jesus. In fact, I think this is partially why Jordan Peterson hasn't made a public declaration of faith. He keeps getting closer and closer to Christianity, but I think he's afraid of being someone's evangelical trophy. And honestly, I wouldn't blame him. From a biblical perspective, we need to approach celebrity conversions with wise discernment. Jesus' parable of the sowers, found in Matthew 13, offers us, I think, some pretty important insights. In this parable, Jesus speaks about seeds falling onto different soils, each representing various responses to the gospel message. Matthew 13, 18 through 23 says this: "Hear then the parable of the sower. When anyone hears the word of the kingdom and does not understand it, the evil one comes in and snatches away what has been sown into his heart. That is what was sown along the path. As for the one who was sown on the rocky ground, this is the one who hears the word and immediately receives it with joy. Yet he has no root inside of himself, but endures for a while, and when tribulation and persecution arise on account of the word, immediately that guy falls away. As for that which was sown among the thorns, this is the one who hears the word, but the cares of this world and the deceitfulness of riches choke out the word, and it proves unfruitful. As for the one who is sown on good soil, this is the one who hears the word and understands it. He indeed bears fruit and yields, in one case 100, in another 60, and another 30. Now, I don't think there's any debate here. Matthew 13 clearly illustrates that the gospel can go everywhere, and it can clearly reach the hearts and minds of celebrities. But without solid understanding of the faith, without meaningful discipleship, that initial spark can quickly be snuffed out. Some will respond with enthusiasm, offering up their lives on the altars of emotionalism, professing Christ. But if only fueled by emotionalism, that rooted conviction, that excitement will likely fade away when the cost of following Jesus becomes real. Many celebrities risk losing influence and opportunities and financial support when they publicly identify with Christ, and others will find that the very wealth and success that they've obtained end up choking out the gospel seed before it can ever bear fruit. Even still, many of these public professions might be legitimate, right? Ultimately, as we see in Matthew 13, as it teaches us, time will tell. In navigating these celebrity conversions personally, we must be weary of two opposite extremes that are equally wrong on both sides. One is we can excessively idolize celebrities. We can assume that their testimonies are inherently more valuable or impactful because of their social standing. And conversely, we might fall into cynicism, automatically dismissing these conversions as superficial publicity stunts or transient phases in the lives of these men and women. Nevertheless, each extreme reflects an unhealthy biblical approach. It doesn't promote spiritual maturity within the lives of believers to be either nitpicky or overly accepting of everything. We need to have discernment in this situation. Moreover, we must critically reflect on how celebrity culture could possibly infiltrate the church. As we idolize these individuals because of their following, we might actually find that that's what we want inside of our church. And that would be an absolute shame, because celebrity culture can infiltrate and subdue and distort Christian ministry, overshadowing authentic discipleship with charismatic personalities and cult-like followings. When we allow Christianity to become more about branding or popularity, we risk diluting the genuineness of the gospel message that Christ has come to seek and save the lost. How then can Christians respond thoughtfully and biblically? Well, it's important that we resist the temptation of quickly elevating these celebrities into positions of authority within the church. 1 Timothy 3:6 tells us that leaders who are new converts have an opportunity to fall into the snare of the devil, to fall into pride and self-exaltation. So just because someone has converted and they're good public speakers doesn't mean that they need to be elevated within our church. That can stunt their spiritual growth and ours. Instead, they should be encouraged to grow and humbly submit to continual participation within a local church where they can be discipled without the pressures of public influence. Accountability is also super important. James chapter 2 reminds us that we shouldn't show favoritism and the fame that should never excuse someone from the ordinary necessary rhythms of Christian formation. Upholding the priesthood of all believers, as seen in 1 Peter 2:9, it teaches us and ensures us that ministry remains a shared calling amongst all believers, not just amongst those who are well known. Next, we need to remember that our eyes should always be on Jesus, not on celebrities. That seems like a no-brainer, right? He is the center of our lives and of our message and of our hope. It doesn't mean that we are hoping for this. In some sense, we should hope for the culture to change. We should pray that his kingdom come, but we should not be distracted by these public professions. We should keep our eyes strictly on Jesus. When the spotlight starts to shift towards famous faces, we need to gently but firmly redirect it back to where it belongs, on Christ. As Paul emphasized in 1 Corinthians 1:26, gospel effectiveness is not rooted in worldly power or social status, but exclusively in the power of Christ crucified. Our message should always center on Christ and his sufficiency demonstrated through the weakness of the church. Finally, I do want to be very clear that there's a difference between elevating celebrities in the church, and that is a huge difference between them using their existing platforms to proclaim their newfound faith. If a brand new believer came to faith with no prior understanding of the gospel, wouldn't you want them to share about Jesus? I know when I was 17, I graduated high school, I was in a Bible school, and the Bible school sent me into some public high schools to proclaim the faith, right? I'm 17 years old. My sanctification is not anything to brag about. My doctrine, not robust in the slightest. Very broken. I could not articulate the hypostatic union. In fact, when I tried to articulate how Jesus is fully God and fully man, I erred in a way that was not historical or biblical. I could tell you on the doctrine of the Trinity, I could probably spout off, that God is one. We believe in one God, eternally existing in three persons, Father, Son, and Spirit. But if you begin to drill down on those doctrines with me, I would definitely have a lot of error in my theology. And nevertheless, with my broken theology and my broken ethics, I'm in these public high schools sharing what Jesus has done for me. And people come to faith, and those people go share the gospel with other people. So we have this group of 14, 15, 16-year-olds sharing the gospel inside of their public high schools, and people coming to faith. And my sanctification and my doctrine is broken. Certainly theirs is too, because they've just come to faith. But wouldn't we want this? Wouldn't we want a radical sharing of the gospel message? Not because the messenger is perfect in ethic and doctrine, but because the gospel message needs to go out in advance. I mean, I personally think about the woman at the well. Jesus meets her and he finds out that she's been married 5 times and the person she's now shacking up with is not her husband, right? She's far from having her life cleaned up. And yet after encountering Jesus, she immediately runs back into Samaria and tells all the men of the city all the things that Jesus had known about her, right? Her partner, while she's doing this, is likely still at home. Her theology is shaky at best. She's definitely not leading a women's Bible study on the hypostatic union. She doesn't understand the virgin birth, and she definitely could not give a law-gospel distinction if her life depended on it. But in her rawness and brokenness, she draws a crowd and points them straight to Jesus. And the text records that many believed in his name. Likewise, many Christian celebrities will find themselves accepting awards and thanking Jesus publicly. Some will go on podcasts and talk about their newfound faith, and we should not look at them as pastors or spiritual authorities in our lives. And we certainly shouldn't expect them to deliver theologically robust gospel presentations. Additionally, with that, it's probably important to note that their lives are likely not going to be sanctified like our senior global pastor of our own personal local church. Their lives are likely going to continue to move toward a sanctification process if they're truly saved. We shouldn't expect them to have everything cleaned up instantaneously. Even so, we should be thankful that God has drawn them to himself, and thankful that he's using their influence to plant the seeds of the gospel in the lives of those who may never step foot in church. As Christians, our primary objective remains clear: glorifying Christ rather than elevating individuals. Our core emphasis must remain steadfast on authentic discipleship and the centrality of Christ through his church. We should celebrate the faithful lives of noteworthy conversions, right? Always anchoring our joy and hope firmly, not in their conversion, but Christ, the true cornerstone of our faith. Man, there's so much more we could talk about when it comes to celebrities and their conversions. If you want to follow the story of a specific celebrity who came to faith and, man, their life seemed a little bumpy and may actually be making a legitimate profession of faith, check out this video over here I did about Russell Brand. I give you my thoughts about his process and journey in converting into Christianity.